All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for HBK Euphonium, Liz and the Bluebird. All right.
I have wanted to watch this movie for a long time. Well, specifically since Anime Expo 2018.
Wow.
Because that was when it was, first released and all that stuff, and I was all like, okay, yeah. And then I heard about this movie from the composer Kensuke Ushio, and I got my signing.
Wow.
And he was all like, go check it out, and I was
so
like,
cool.
okay. And then, it's for that HBK Euphonium show that we haven't seen yet. I see. But okay, now we're here.
The wait was worth it. We now have context for why this show deserves to have an amazing movie.
Right.
And not only that, we want just more HBK Euphonium content in general. So,
yes.
Movie time, y'all.
Yeah.
This is the first of two movies that we will be reacting to. There is
Right.
a second movie that will be coming after this. I don't believe there's necessarily any tie-in directly story-wise, because the other movie doesn't have some fancy name like Liz and the Bluebird, as far as I know.
As far as I know, this is a side story, and from the cover art for the film, it looks like it focuses on Mizore and Nozomi. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Two of the side characters introduced in season 2 that had a very unique kind of connection, but also I would say interactions just in general because of past. Yeah. So, y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. Here we go.
All right. Okay.
We got like some watercolor.
Yeah, I love it.
Okay.
So is this like the past, basically?
This is like a fantastical
Yeah.
movie. There's the Bluebird.
Yeah.
So is this Liz then?
I think so. So
Maybe
is this
it's
like
a
a favorite,
storybook.
storybook? Uh-huh.
Yeah. Because her Seiyu is definitely not Mizore and Nozomi's.
Right. But how much you want to bet that in the sort of duality representation in like the actual like real life, Mizore is totally the Bluebird.
Oh. Okay. Sure. Yeah, that fits, yeah. Oh my god. This is amazing.
Yeah. That doesn't look like Mizore though. Or at least maybe the character designs are just slightly different because it's a movie, This is so gorgeous.
I know. Just realized the next. Holy shaft, Batman.
Ah, blue feather. Nice.
Nice, okay.
I gotta say, I absolutely love how much communication is just being based on like the character movement. Yeah.
That's them just flexing with the hands.
Oh, I
It
know,
has to
I
be.
know.
It has
Yep.
to be. Just like, yeah.
And
We show the
specifically,
hands.
well, in the
And, like,
hands
drafting
reaching around
movement.
a corner.
Yeah.
One of the things that I always thought was kind of interesting when Mizore was introduced was the idea that she plays an instrument where the opening is like 4 millimeters or something, right? Like that's absolutely tiny. And she's also like the super soft-spoken character.
Right.
So, yeah, I like that we just have this of just, she hasn't said a single thing,
Nope.
this whole movie so far.
Nothing. Oh, they're here.
All right.
Wow.
Okay.
All right, so we're definitely going to get into then all the drama of the previous year, right?
Maybe.
That's where a lot of the conflict will come out, right? Because
Yeah, I'm not sure.
this is not this year in terms of the show. It has to be in the past.
Probably.
Unless you're thinking that it's the next year?
Maybe? I mean, it could be. It's after the second season. Or actually, I don't know if it's after the second season.
See, we don't know necessarily.
Yeah. Or in release, it came out after the second season.
Yeah.
So.
For sure.
Oh, no, maybe she's Liz then.
Well, it depends, really.
And then Nozomi is the beautiful blue bird that just sort of, flies into her life.
Yeah, in some ways, maybe they're both.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Oh, okay. Yep. All right. I guess this is... Okay.
Yeah, that's how the story goes. Okay.
Let's fuel up on tears.
They're kind of like...
Oh boy.
Oh.
This is beautiful.
That's an intro. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Just sharing this quiet moment before,
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else shows up.
Yeah.
Here nice and early. Misare, like, waiting
Yep. It's their
for
regimen.
her. Just,
And also the whole thing of her showing up before Nozomi, like showing maybe the imbalance of, what it means to them.
yeah. Hey.
Oh. Hey, you go. Hey.
Wait, Prez. Oh.
I think the Prez was talking to Nozomi.
No. What I'm
Wait.
saying then is that
Wait,
this
hold
is
on.
the next
Oh,
year.
okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Cool. So that was them kind of patching. It's an example of them patching things up from before.
Kind of,
But at the same time, there's still that imbalance.
Yeah.
Oh, because you want it to be something that just the two of you play together?
It's like having a Ghibli film inside of another film.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. One of the things that never ceases to blow me away is how Ushio's soundtracks can be so completely different based on the story that it's for.
Sure.
Because, like, he did a silent voice, but then he also did Devilman Crybaby.
Yeah. Oh.
And then the Bluebird. Okay.
Oh.
Gotcha.
This is the Bluebird, but as
Yeah,
a
he maybe
little
got
girl.
hurt in the storm or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like a Ghibli movie inside of the whole other movie. I gotta say, the extra attention to detail in Misore's hair changes the emotional vibe I get for her so much.
Same. Yes. Hello.
鎧塚先輩もご一緒にどうですかせっかく4人しかいないダブルリードですし私はいい
Oh.
ですか
Distraught.
Yeah.
Just.
また明日ね
You don't have time for me, do you? But see you tomorrow. Oh, man.
Yeah. See, they both fit both aspects of it. Although it's very because there's different angles. Like, you can look at it from the standpoint that she's Liz because a bluebird comes into her life, and it's just like,
Yeah.
俺にこれん何これコンビニのゆで卵です
Okay.
I love this awkward girl.
Yeah.
She's the leader of their little trio. And they're like,
Yeah.
go,
Right.
go,
How did she
inquire.
become the leader?
The scout, yeah.
Now, I just want to point out a boiled egg means a dead bird.
Jesus, man. Go get it.
If only you could fly up
Fly.
after it. Yeah. All right.
She very much feels like a bird in the whimsical kind
Sort of flitting around.
Yeah.
Red and blue.
Oh. And the way her hair is animated, almost like its wings,
Yeah.
Yeah. Stay.
そばにいて
Oh.
ずっと
The fact that
Yeah.
oh man, the fact that this is the present and Nozomi said, "Hey, this is kind of like us."
Right.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
大好きもうハグだねあなたたちに夢中なのかな
He just gave her a heart attack.
Yeah.
He's like, oh.
Oh no. No.
嫌だったごめんごめん
Wow. Oh shit. Oh my god.
イエーイ
Yeah. Nakagawa,
Your face.
I love you.
Yeah.
She can see it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And now she's messing with her.
Oh.
That's such a happy smile.
Uh-huh.
Oh my god.
You can tell that, like, Nozomi doesn't ever want to be pushing her, right? So, like, she does want to
she's
be
gone.
with her and spend time with her and stuff, and yet the aspect of Mizore being a little bit slower in terms of, like, picking up on these signals and
Yep,
trying to
yep,
respond,
Yeah.
she doesn't want to.
Because Nozomi has to live her own life too. You know?
Right, but not only that, Mizore...
I love that we're going through the story, which we know the ending of the story, but we don't know the ending of their story in the present since it's in the present, right? It could go any way, right? So
Right.
this could be a sad ending, it could be a happy ending, it could be both.
Nozomi prefers happy endings, Jacob. Oh.
Yeah.
Winter birds fly south.
Oh, right.
So you're not
Yeah.
gonna leave? You're gonna stay here?
And then the feather by itself in the bird
Bird
cage.
cage, yeah.
本題のパンフレットかへえここの大学受けようかな
Oh.
ずっと友達だようわ何か鳥肌
The parallel, though, was a total coincidence. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. Looks over to Nozomi, though. Not over to them. Oh.
何本気にしてるの二人とも
Oh. Wait.
Oh, shit.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh.
I feel like Nozomi is trying to make up for lost time, but then at the same time potentially prepare, like, Mizore for, like, separation.
じゃないけど
Yes!
Yeah.
今度教える
Hey!
本当ですかすかさずハッピーアイスクリームと叫ぶのですじゃん嬉しい
Ah. That's adorable.
緊張しちゃいました
そっと語りかけるように
Whoa.
オーボエとフルートの掛け合いが何を
Ah.
あなたもフルー
It
ト
can't be one-sided.
Okay.
Oh my god.
Alright, alright.
Oh my god.
のぞみ先輩と相性悪くないですか高坂私は先輩の本気の音が聞きたいんです
Okay.
私がリズなら青い鳥をずっと閉じ込めておくリズに会いたくなったらまた会いに来ればいいと思うんだよねそれじゃリズの決心が台無しじゃん ハッピーエンドじゃん
Ah. Did you just say that was not a happy ending like earlier?
Since the Listen to Bluebird book, I'm guessing, is made up, you know?
Oh yeah.
I'm very curious then if this music that they're performing was also made for the movie.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. That's a good point. It's possible. Yeah, it's very possible.
私太ってるってことかもツボ先輩の服や
And then looks away. Oh, God. Oh!
Oh, God.
No.
Oh, no.
And that hesitation and...
今度ね
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Shit.
本当に音大行きたい
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's resenting Mizore because she's feeling caged, but at the same time she feels like she owes her a duty because of the way she hurt her before.
Yeah. And no, Mizore's not communicating.
But she's also not communicating to Mizore.
I mean, yeah. But
みぞれは知ってるの知らないよなんでなんでって
Yuko's about to
Yuko's-
get angry.
Yeah, about to do her angry walk.
Yeah.
みぞれに黙って部活やめて
Yep. Yep. The bird can't just fly back and then disappear.
じゃあもし鎧塚さんが青いと
Yeah.
Yep,
Good.
yep.
It's like
Uh-huh.
both. Yeah.
Right, right.
突然リズに別れを告げられるその翼を奪ってはいけないわ
Oh, yeah. She's human while she's with her. And that's fitting, too, because Liz was the one that saved the bluebird.
Right. Yeah. It's both. Yeah.
愛してるわ青い鳥は不幸だった
No.
わからない青い鳥の愛のあり方飛び立つしかないもうさ
I like this mini intervention that's happening here on both
それだけ
ends.
なんだよね
Oh.
私ずっとリズに自分を重ねようとしてました
Yeah.
青い鳥
Wow.
Nice.
でも今は
Nice.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Oh.
どうして私にカゴの開け方を教えたのですか
Oh.
Wow, and they're
Oh,
up.
cool.
She's
They're
up here, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we get it now. And probably haven't even told each other that they
Nope.
just. She's like, oh yeah, I'm doing this too. Yeah.
But I love it because she's basically saying, I don't know if Nozomi knows this, but I know it, so that will change how I do it.
Oh, that realization. Oh. Pretty sure those were tears welling up in
Yep,
her eyes
yep.
there. She's singing her heart out.
That eye quiver. Triumph. That almost like lack of understanding in Nozomi's eyes of just like, wait.
Oh, and then she whispers back to her.
Yep.
Oh! They're listening. Sending her off.
Uh-huh. Yeah, other people
They
were
all
crying
felt
too,
that,
yeah.
should go to music school.
And she's gone.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
今まで手加減してたんだね、それなりに見えるかなって聞いて。のぞみはいつも勝手。
All right.
1年生の時だって勝手にやめた。のぞみといられれば何だっていい。そんな大げさなこと言わないで。大げさじゃない。なんでそんなに言ってくれるのかわかんの。
Yep. Yep. Uh-huh.
Nice. Way to go.
Oh, I was waiting for that.
Oh.
のぞみの全部。みそれの覚えが好き。
Oh, this is such a tender moment. Ugh. She's shell shocked.
鎧塚さんっていうの？
Now she remembers.
部活入ってる？
Don't remember it
じ
that
ゃあ
well.
吹奏楽部に入らない？
College entrances.
I love the soundtrack.
Yep, they went different directions. She shows up early to study. She shows up early to practice.
Yeah.
They're not sort of showing up at the same spot together like in the beginning of the movie. Yeah.
No, you can't do that. Oh, okay. Okay.
みそれ、私、みそれのソロを完璧に支えるから、今はちょっと待ってて。
Ah.
Oh my god.
本番、頑張ろう。
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
アイスクリーム。
Ah!
Come on. Wow.
Oh, cool. Cool.
We don't even get to hear her say it.
That was a really good movie.
That was so good. That was so good.
Oh.
Well, that
Yeah, that kind of did me in. Oh. I'm actually really like feeling this music as like therapeutic right now because I get to like breathe and what yeah, I'm gonna just save it for the discussion. Wow.
That was every single thing that was brought up. Like there were so many things throughout the movie where I'm like, okay, that's a flag. Like we need to have that happen at some point. You know, with the happy ice cream and the I love you hug and all of that. And like, okay, and
Yeah.
each one was followed up on. Like that. Oh man.
Ah, yes, bring my mood back up. Thank
Right,
you,
exactly,
Thank you,
we need
music.
that.
Thank you, music. The next
Like-
piece begins.
Cause like that was a happy ending, but it was also just
Yes.
there was a lot of feelings.
So
A lot of
much.
feelings.
Yeah, that's
so-
a movie, y'all.
That is a movie.
That is a movie that
my
has
God.
so much power packed into such a simple story. One of the things that I immediately want to break like the ice of this discussion with is that this is a movie that was done so well that you don't actually need to have seen the anime in order to have this hit emotionally well.
Yep.
However, there's a lot of things in the anime that are monumentally important, I would say, for the main two characters to see the to see the build up more obviously. But that's the thing that the movie does really well is repetition. There's a lot of things in the atmosphere and the setup of the movie that are there so that the moments of the emotional hits, they hit you super hard. Now, they were hitting us really hard before, while they were still build up, because we have all the context of the anime that we just watched basically over the last few months or so. So it's a masterclass of that build up by utilizing like the repetition of the aspects of the fairy tale. And then the stuff with the characters' interactions, that's the KyoAni just touch right there, is all the little body language.
And
all that.
I gotta say, the fact that like this in my mind is such a wonderful example of what anime movies can be, because the story on a fundamental level of what's going on, right? Unequal relationship, connection, past hurt, all that stuff, right? That's something that doesn't fundamentally need a bunch of time in order to tell that story, right? Theoretically, I wouldn't have been surprised if this was a story that was done in a single anime episode, right? It would have been much worse off for it, but you could do it, right?
You could do it just fine.
You could do it, right? And it would still be a great episode, right? It would be a fantastic episode. But having a full 90 minutes with, KyoAni bringing its movie budget and all that stuff, and having a whole scene where 5 minutes of them like walking around and things like that, and we haven't even had Mizore say a word.
Say a single
it's like that. It brings us into it, right? Because the story in and of itself is something that is a very emotional story, right? It deals with the emotions and things like that. So that could easily become a crutch of where we don't necessarily need to set the atmosphere and do as many things to make absolutely sure that the audience is like fully immersed in what's going on, because
and believes the characters, very, very complex emotions,
because it would still hit hard. Right?
But you wouldn't necessarily be in the full like understanding of both characters necessarily.
Right. Like it's the thing where seeing them reach around the corner of like the lockers or whatever with their fingers, right? As just like that's something that regular people would of course do, right? It's
not necessary to the plot.
Nope.
This is just us just letting you get fully immersed.
Right. It's like the classic Ghibli thing of like the tapping the shoes, on the floor, after they put them on and and stuff like that, right? Those things where it's like, yes, okay, these are real people who live lives in this world. This is actually happening somewhere.
Right.
Like it's not.
And you just get a window into it.
Right. This isn't a movie. This isn't a movie. This is just another world that is existing. Right. And you get the opportunity of having that window into it. Right.
Yeah.
And it's.
It's incredible. I cannot speak enough about the music too. The background music that we got in this movie, that's very much something that stands out apart from the actual show, which does have BGM tracks, of course. But this was this was so good.
I am a big fan of. I've been a big fan of Kensuke Ushio's ever since I watched A Silent Voice, because he does the OST in that movie, and it's absolutely amazing, right?
It really is.
But like, it felt like the perfect amount of like, yes, I can recognize that this is Kensuke Ushio, but then at the same time, like, fading into the background and things like that, and not feeling like just a repetition of what he did in A Silent Voice, right? But those strengths that he brought to the table for the character who has trouble communicating, right? The soft spoken nature, and all that stuff, and how important it is to understand each other and all that, really.
Worked well here.
Really worked well. Like I feel like that was one of those things where it's like, and he's like, okay, we did A Silent Voice and that was great.
We don't work with that guy.
Yeah. And we're doing another film about you know, someone who has trouble communicating.
Yeah.
Well, like, we don't need to change too much. Like,
Do it again.
yep, let's do it again. Like, there's the art style. Let's change up the art style a bit more. That way we can have that, you know, attention to the hair so that way you can, like, feel, you know, like the hair with Yoroizuka when she, like, grabs her hair and stuff and she's nervous and, like,
just chills just thinking back that I actually watched this. This was
it was so good. It was so good. Yeah.
So in terms of as a movie, it's very much, I would say, an art piece that is far less plot plot dependent than most movies would be. One of the things that I would say is rather powerful about this is the idea of that repetition. So one of the things that I know is going to be different depending on who's watching this, is you're going to pick up on the subtle signals of what's going on between Nozomi and Mizore at different times than other people.
Sure.
Like, it's not going to hit you at the same time as it's going to hit everyone else with like, I can tell where this is building up to. That's why it needed all those times to set up the atmosphere of it.
Yep.
But in that we get all the way from the beginning, basically if you will, a little bit of a telling of how the ending is going to be,
right?
And that they kind of came all the way back to the beginning with this here, and I really like it because having attached myself already to Nozomi and Mizore as characters because of
the
season
show.
2, I very much had some expectations going in of, okay, if it's a spin-off movie, then we're going to go and tell the past story. No,
Sure.
We're not doing that. Oh, okay, then if we're doing the present, then we're going to use this as a framework to bring about maybe some kind of conflict with regards to some aspect of the school. No. This is all entirely a story about the unresolved emotions between the two of these characters.
Yep.
Because of their past together.
And it absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
Because of how the, like, it wouldn't have fit if Kumiko was, like, sort of trying to help make things go better in this story.
Well, not even Kumiko, just any of the characters really getting a real first-person kind of focus.
Yep. And that's one of the other reasons why I just think the fact that this was decided to be done as a movie is fantastic.
It's very
right?
smart. Yes.
Because the movie had a singular focus, right? And I feel like that's what you want movies to have, right? A show, you know, because it's a bunch of different episodes and things like that, you can get into all sorts of different things, right?
Yeah.
You can have, while Reina's whole dealing with Taki had a wife, we also have the deal with Asuka, and then also the deal with Kumiko's sister, and, and all that stuff, right? Because it's a show. It's a bunch of things all strung together, and it tells this bigger, larger scope, great story.
But in this, we have a competing solo.
Yeah.
A competing set of solos.
Right. Just two characters that need to figure out how to communicate.
Yeah.
To understand themselves and to put their emotions into a form that the other person can understand and receive and I love it. Like because it's something where when we get that opening sequence of them walking,
right,
every bit of the conflict I feel like is presented there. Like of what is going to be covered in the movie, right? Like we understand the dynamic, and we also know what the problems are and potentially what needs to be addressed, but why it's not necessarily going to be straightforward, right? Because
it's pressing, but it's not going to be addressed quickly.
Exactly, because this story would have been a lot shorter if, say, Nozomi didn't care about Mizore the way that she did, right? If it was just a simple thing of no, now I'm starting to feel caged or whatever, and I need to have distance, then it would be heartbreaking, right? But it would probably be addressed a lot faster because there wouldn't be the second guessing and the insecurities about how to move forward, right? But because both of these characters do care about each other very much, in their own very different ways and stuff, and there are issues that aren't being addressed, well, drama, conflict, that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it took a while in the movie's runtime for the drama to actually come up,
Sure.
because these characters aren't communicating. But the
Right.
drama was put into the movie immediately.
Right.
And what I loved about this was because we've seen Mizore and Nozomi have a little bit of a resolution to this conflict, and we then didn't see much change in their dynamic. That's why I assumed this was actually in the past.
Oh, yeah.
But one of the things that I think might not have been intentional, but one of the things I just stumbled upon just thinking about that, is that what if, because their conflict seems to be still right there, it's like nothing was resolved, it makes you think it's in the past.
Because nothing's changed?
Because nothing's changed.
I would not be surprised if that was intentional on the part of the studio to be like...
Okay, but hold on.
You know.
Let me keep talking. Then it takes a long time for you to even get to a place where there's any proof that it is necessarily the next year.
Yep.
Because, this is something that would make sense for them to have done in their earlier stages there. The only difference is that, we can't really tell if they're younger, but because they changed the style, there's that idea of, we have no necessary connection to the previous show. Therefore, I have nothing. I have to come in fully disconnected
Blank
from the
slate,
show, blank slate.
Yeah.
And then they're like, hey, it's the next year, Prez. Hey, Prez. And I'm like, wait, no, this is the present.
Which is
like
wonderful
no
too,
way.
because on the one hand, I'm like, awesome. So we've got some first years that we're getting introduced to and things like that. We get to see the new designs of the characters, but then at the same time, the whole thing with the new designs, there's also the difference in art style. So it's like I'm getting tantalized with like, this is what the characters are going to look like moving forward, but not quite.
Not really.
Not quite. Not really. No. Right. So there's still stuff that like, because I'm guessing for the follow-up movie,
it will not look like this.
It probably won't look like this because this very much seems like a thing where it's to communicate the emotional situations, and all that stuff, right? Like Yoroisuka's old design would not have worked in this movie.
No,
like it just wouldn't have.
I
right?
agree. It definitely would not have.
Like, oh man.
So I really feel like the idea of having us then come into this going, wait, the problems are still there,
right?
And that's what we know as people that have watched the show. If you hadn't watched the show, what would have been created here is this idea of there's some unequal relationships going on here with this thing here, but the mystery would be you don't know why.
Right.
You don't know why they have this like wall that's kind of separating the two of them there.
And then you get the reveal of you didn't tell me when you quit the club before.
Right, exactly.
Like,
there's a nice gradual salting, seasoning of build up to it to when you get the reveal. So for us as those that watch the show, we know all this.
Yep.
But we're wrapping our heads around the idea that, wait, didn't you guys make up?
Yeah. Because
wait, you didn't.
Right.
Oh
like,
my God, you didn't.
Like, you had the cathartic conversation, and that helped because there was some understanding, but one cathartic conversation does not make a thing go away.
No.
And it almost felt to me like Nozomi was specifically trying to, as a way to reestablish the relationship, was trying to have things go back to the way they were, right? Of, we'll meet up, and practice together, early in the morning and things like that, and it'll be great, right?
Okay.
But things are different, right? Like it isn't exactly the way things were, right? When she talks about the whole idea of the fact that she didn't tell her that she quit the club, she's not thinking much of it, right? It's like, but that's like,
well, that's at the end of the movie.
No, right.
Yeah.
But that was a while ago, though, right? That's, that's over and done with, right? We've resolved that. And it's like, well, no, she's probably still holding on to that,
Right. Yeah. I absolutely just was floored by how much this reminded me of some of my favorite things about this type of relationship drama in like other mediums or shows or movies and stuff. There's a very common trope with regards to this is that no one's in the wrong. Like, it's not a trope, really, but it's just the idea of, in these types of relationship dramas, no one is actually, like, the one at fault for this.
Yeah, I would say that's something that I especially see a lot more with, like, anime and Eastern media rather than Western. Like, sometimes in Western, it'll be like you need to have the one person where it's like, if only they fixed everything, you know, then it'd be fine, right? And one person is totally, you know, hasn't made any mistakes or whatever, right? But it's like, no. It takes two to tango, you know?
And one of my favorite examples of this in a very, I would not even deign to compare the two in terms of story and just relationship quality, but I have a soft spot for The Fox and the Hound because it's an entirely different type of story.
Yeah.
But it's the idea that if two people have a relationship that is made by some kind of convenience or some kind of relationship bond or connection or something, there's so many times where you see it get unequal, where you have one person caring about it way more than the other, or in one of the other ways it's really, really interesting here is it's not that it's one person that cares one way or the other, but one of the person's communication styles is one that is hard for anyone to really pick up on, and that's kind of what they use here. Is that, well, Yoroizuka as a character is one that very few people actually know how to communicate with because, this is one of her personality aspects here.
Even when the first year goes to Nozomi and is like, hey, I think she might be mad at me, Nozomi isn't able to speak with any kind of confidence, right? No. She's like, I don't think so, right?
No, probably not.
Yeah, probably not, you know? Which goes to show that even for the person who is closest to Yoroizuka, it's still a lot of guessing and I'm not sure, I think so,
right.
Which then explains a whole lot more where she's coming from with her half of the communication.
Yeah.
Because, you know, Mizore is not a great communicator. Like, let's just be upfront about that, right? So naturally there's going to be some trouble there. Nozomi knows that she's not a great communicator and is also a great communicator herself, it seems, with, you know, her other friendships and things like that, you know?
So by the by.
Yeah, by the by, right? So it's like where, you know, she doesn't necessarily seem to be like doing things to try and like cover for that, which you wouldn't necessarily want to rely on too much for a healthy relationship, right?
Yeah.
But the something she's different around Mizore than she is around her other friends, right?
Oh, really? You think so?
Yeah, I think so.
I barely think she was for the most of the movie.
Oh, yeah?
Most of the movie, that's the point. She was trying to be, well, just as normal as she could. If anything, I feel like she was closing off her feelings a little bit more around her. Not that she was actually like making any kind of concerted effort.
Same. Yeah.
Right, but with the other people, she wasn't in any deep relationships either.
No, but
she was just kind of flitting around, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was something where there was a vibe that I got from her that it was even the bits that the bits of communication that they did have and when they were hanging out, that it was forced. Like that basically it's the I do my thing of hanging out with her in the morning to try and basically make sure that the past hurt of the relationship is covered, you know, of we're hanging out still, we're playing together and all that. But then once she's basically done her almost good deed for the day, then she moves on to other people because it's the now I go back to my regular way of doing things, and then that involves me flitting around to other people and, you know, and just being the social butterfly, basically.
Yeah, if anything, the part that I think is a little bit of a, maybe there's going to be some cool biases that we'll bring up with this, but I feel like you're going to maybe side more with Yoroizuka just in general.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm actually going to not side necessarily that much with Yoroizuka, but I'm probably not also going to side as much with Nozomi, but I'm probably going to empathize a little bit more with Nozomi.
Yeah,
because
right.
I don't think that Nozomi gets any focus really in the story to show that she's intentionally seeking out the senpai kohai relationships with any of them. That's not like pointed out at all in the movie.
Right. Well, so, yeah. If anything, it almost seems like she's bothered by it or annoyed by it sometimes.
Right. But if anything, she seeks out many times to interact with Yoroizuka, and Yoroizuka does not respond, and it's what's not said that's important because Nozomi keeps giving up after about 5 to 7 seconds of silence, basically. That happens like
that's true.
over and over and over again. In the movie.
That was
And that was this thing of where I was like, oh shoot, they're really trying to make sure that no one picks a side here. Like no one is at fault for this. This is very much a thing of where if we go with the fault angle, they're both at fault for sure.
Oh yeah, you're right.
But in terms of who's kind of initiating this thing here, this is something that is based around what's said and what's not said. But what's not said is in some ways even more of the part where we were emotionally just throughout the movie.
Absolutely, yeah. That's the story of this whole movie. I feel like, and naturally, Nozomi would be the one to say things most of the time because she's the outspoken one. But there were a lot of times where it felt like Nozomi was specifically putting up barriers, like when she would do things and she would talk about something and then she would be like, that's a joke, right? Like, and she would basically not just like if she made an offering, right, of like some kind of connection, it wouldn't just be that she like let the offering like sit out there and then go and do something else because there's it's not getting picked up on, right, or whatever, right? Mizure is taking a while. She would do things that would actively like pull the offering away.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Like it's just all right. It's there, but it's not there anymore. Right. And I wasn't sure where necessarily that was coming from on Nozomi's side because in the beginning of the movie, I was thinking that it was because she was actually wanting to have some distance. Right. It's the I can tell that you're kind of keeping me chained up and I need space.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. But
then at the same time, it's the still making the offerings, right? Like the I need space, but at the same time I feel bad for what happened before, so I'm going to continue to put them out there.
I think that much of the characters' motivations are based in past stuff, but a lot of it doesn't have to be. One of the things that's very interesting about the repetition angle is that Yoroizuka keeps following Nozomi and keeps kind of inclining towards her, looking at her, staring at her. Giving her basically the impression that there's some kind of response I'm looking for from you, which is like, oh, you need to actually like respond to me. I'm giving you energy, but Nozomi keeps coming over with like, hey, what about this? What about this? This is a response. But Yoroizuka is a mystery to her. That's something that she says of I don't understand her fully. Like that's something that Nozomi doesn't lend out specifically as the energy of I would like to ask you questions of who are you? What do you want? Very basic fundamental questions. I feel like that's the things that's not said and that's what's really important. So all the things that you're talking about of she comes over seeking connection but pulls it away. I think it's because when she brings it up, it's is this the response you're looking for? You want to spend time with me, right? That's why you keep following me, right? So I keep offering opportunities to spend time with me.
Kind of almost placating?
Well, no. Just giving the, like, hey, like, I want to spend time with you too. I want to get to know you. And this is what I'm picking up from the things that you're not saying. So why don't you take these offerings? Oh, okay, fine. Then
this
I'm taking that
this
back.
is really interesting because I would say we definitely split into the two characters pretty well. Like I am definitely more Mizure and you're definitely more Nozomi.
Yeah. I think what's really important here about this is that the characters are not saying what they truly feel.
Right.
And when they bring up things, what they're pointing out is what's not being said.
Right. Like, because like you said the whole thing of how you got the vibe that Mizore was looking for a particular response from Nozomi, or that Nozomi felt like Mizore was looking for a particular response.
Well, yeah, that's why she was following her all the time.
I disagree.
I need to spend time with you. I love you so much.
So I want, and maybe this is splitting hairs, right?
Okay,
but
I can tell what it's gonna be.
No.
Yeah.
What do you think it's gonna be?
Go ahead.
No, go for it.
Go ahead. No, it's okay.
Do it. What do you think?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not actually that Mizore is wanting to get a particular response. It's that she's wanting to figure out how to actually say what she feels.
Okay, that's not exactly what I thought you were going to say, but okay. So yeah, so she's wanting specifically to have an opportunity to where she can then, say.
Right.
So she's got the words in her throat, she's got the feelings in her heart.
Yep.
But she keeps having them caught.
And that's why she never goes all out when she plays the oboe. That's why there's the whole situation of like, oh yeah, it feels like you're holding yourself back. Why don't you just play as beautifully as you can, right?
Yeah.
Because in the past, she got really hurt when she fully let herself be as emotionally chained basically to Nozomi as she was at the start, right? And then Nozomi left, didn't say anything. That hurt a lot. She hasn't come over. She hasn't gotten over that, right? She has accepted the circumstances for what was going on, right? But at the same time, there's this hurt that's there. So when she goes to want to do the thing of being emotionally vulnerable, which is something she's not very good at in the first place, so it's like she doesn't try to do it unless it's like she thinks like this might be an actual opportunity for that, right? And usually then only with Nozomi, right? She doesn't do it with other people in her class or whatever because she's not close to them.
Well, she doesn't care about them,
right? She doesn't care about them, right? It's not a thing of she hates you first year. It's just that
you're not a priority,
right? She doesn't really have an opinion on you right now because she's not thinking about you, right?
Now she does enjoy the fact that one of them particularly comes up and wants to spend time with her, so she's like, hey, I'd like to invite them.
Yep, and when that is kind of broken through and she realizes, oh, there might actually be a way that I can communicate with this person, then suddenly she's a lot more comfortable with being like, okay, yeah, let's actually invite them, right?
Right.
But with Nozomi, there's this catch-22, right? Because it's the there are these things that I want to communicate, and yet at the same time there is that painful memory, right? And I don't know if that's going to happen again. I feel like it's going to happen again, which is something that needs to happen again because otherwise it won't last, right? And that's also the thing that then Nozomi is realizing is that I want to spend time with her, but this cannot continue. This is not sustainable. There is something about this that needs to change.
Yeah.
But neither of them is aware enough of the situation and has the wisdom of experience basically to
said.
Yeah.
The two characters are entirely caged up within not only the past but the expectations and feelings with regards to each other. So, Yorozuka expects that there's a possibility that the relationship will lend itself towards something better if she follows her around enough and then ends up mustering up either the courage to say something or get some kind of a response from Nozomi regarding the fact that she's coming around here all this time. Now, because Nozomi then keeps bringing things up from the standpoint of, hey, let's spend more time together, it's like, yeah, that's great and all, but that's not really what she's wanting to talk about, so she doesn't immediately respond to those things. However, she does almost always, if given enough time, say yes to those things.
Right.
So it's not something that she's against in any way because it's substituting something, but the parts where Nozomi is... missing the opportunities, if you will, is that what she's not saying are all the questions of, wait a minute, what are you doing? Like, what is all this? Like, I am observant. I am not, stupid here. I'm aware of what's going on here a little bit, but why? But she's too, in some ways, I almost feel like there's a body language thing that you can not put it as a lie kind of thing, but every time that the characters fidget, they're holding something back.
Right.
It's not that they're nervous necessarily, like we were talking about earlier, but if you like, I think if you tie them all together,
There's internal conflict.
it's internal conflict, but you could almost see it as a little bit of a form of deception. There's an aspect of that
Sure.
they're not being true to themselves, and thus they're not being true to the other person.
Right, something that they're not facing, basically.
Right.
That they know would help, but
Right.
but it'd be painful.
And Nozomi, I believe, makes those same kind of remarks when the issue of the past is brought up. Like, it's a thing that she still feels a bit guilty about, that
Right.
she still does remember, but the priority of it is maybe brought down a little bit because maybe she thinks everything's still okay.
Yeah, I think the guilt thing is right on the money, and that's why I feel like there's a lot of what she's doing in the film that feels forced because it's the it's trying to make good on past mistakes, basically, right? She's like, oh, I realized that didn't help, right? Of not telling you about that, right?
Right.
Because I thought I was trying to think of you, right? But turns out I actually hurt you, and then as a result, it's the okay, well, let's see if I can basically patch that up, right? But
Yeah, it's a really mature take on something that is a very common occurrence, I would say, in most relationships in general, is that people just don't communicate.
Nope.
People just don't do it.
Oh, yeah.
And there's all kinds of reasons that you could go into it, and
Sure.
it's not important about why they're not communicating. It's what they're not communicating. There's a lot of things that I feel like in drama stories in general. You're like, why don't you just say X, or why don't you just communicate this? And it's like, no, the reasons are there. That's the story. They're telling you almost every time in these kinds of things a reason. It's whether or not you buy it as a legitimate
right.
reason, or this is the part that I find more interesting, is well, then, if that's the thing that they could be saying, or like that they, if that's the thing that they could be saying, what actually is that thing that they're not saying?
Right.
Not like the words itself, but what's the full package behind it that they
Yes.
would be communicating if they did? Because that can then go back, almost not in like a circular logic kind of way where it falls upon itself, it has no foundation, but it ties usually back to the character of, oh, okay, if they said this, then they would be communicating this, and this part, that's the part that I feel like this movie does a really good job of kind of poking at.
Right. It's the thing of people avoid things that are uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah.
They just do, right?
Yeah.
Some people less than others, and some people in more direct ways than others, and
Sure.
things like that, right? But the human heart in conflict with itself is the only thing worth writing about, right? And that's what we have here, right? It's something where, yeah, this story could be not even just a single anime episode. It could be finished in like a single sentence, right? You could just have a sentence that is this story, right? Two friends learn to communicate and patch up past hurt. Like there you go, right?
Yeah, that's the
But
story, yeah.
that's not satisfying, right?
Yeah.
You want to see them struggle with it. You want to see all the ways in which they can't bring themselves to do it, because it's that makes it so that it's cathartic and it's worthwhile when they finally overcome that struggle, right? Because it is that big of a struggle, and here you go.
Here you go, yeah. I really love, though, that we actually have a slightly biased, I would say, take on the characters specifically, because one of the things that this story does that I think is almost like this is way too deep of a cut as far as things go. It's not at all necessarily at all intentional, but I think that the story basically deconstructs some of the ideas about other dramas that point one of these characters as being typically at fault.
Yes.
And that's the part of our bias coming in here, is that I think we each slightly think one person was more at fault than another.
Okay.
And I think that's the point, is that you look at this and you go, shit, wow.
Right. And it's like, all right,
okay,
so learn the lesson,
So learn the lesson. Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
It's potentially genius in that respect, but I don't think that's at all something that, no, this is just two characters' stories. This isn't trying to make some grand statement necessarily.
Yeah. Although at the same time, I would not be surprised with, because Hibike, I think Hibike is light novels. I'm not sure.
Yes.
Okay. And then and this
pretty sure, yeah.
Right. And this very much feels like the author basically had an idea and they were like,
Yep.
you know what? Kumiko is a wonderful main character, but I want to do something a little bit different for one of my light novels.
Yeah.
So I'm
makes sense.
gonna tell things from a different perspective, and it'll be relegated to this light novel. It'll be a bit of a side story, and it'll be great, right?
Yeah.
And then, they do that, and they have whatever vision they have for it,
Right.
and then it gets passed on to the adaptation team, and it's like, okay, what are we going to do with this? What kind of story do we want to tell? Because we have this, foundational story, right?
Right.
And then there's how we tell it, right? In the same way that the way you play a musical instrument can vastly change what you're actually communicating, the way you tell a story can vastly change what you're communicating. So they do this, and I would not be surprised if there was some part of the team or whatever, or some inkling of an idea somewhere in the people that adapted this at KyoAni, where they were like, you know what? We could get a bit meta with this. Like there are things that we could kind of draw attention to, that maybe we could communicate a bit of that through, subtext and things like that. Because I can't tell you how many times this kind of conflict in stories is my least favorite part of a story.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and usually I relegate
Yep.
it to the Western media TV show where all of a sudden we need to have conflict of, why did you lie to me? And it's like,
And there's no character build up for it.
no character build up for it. It doesn't even
Or
make
it's
sense.
really weak.
It's really weak.
Really lazy.
It's boring, annoying, all sorts of other things, right?
and it's just a way to slow down the pacing.
Way to slow down the pacing.
Yeah.
The characters certainly don't grow from it, right?
No.
And there's
You'd
nothing.
think so, wouldn't you?
Right, you'd think so, especially when the characters are like grown adults and stuff. But no, and again, that's one of the reasons why I love the kind of young adult like setting for things, because it makes sense that these characters would be grappling with stuff like this, right? Yeah. If Taki and one of the other teachers were having problems like this, I would lose a lot of respect that I would have for them as characters, right? Because I'd be like, come on, you're like, you should have figured this out, a while ago, right?
Yeah.
But for them, they're what, 17? It's like, yeah.
These characters are third years, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like of course they have issues with this. Of course they have issues with this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I very much appreciate that by the end of the story, they also resolved things in a way to where they were both Liz and the Bluebird.
Yeah,
and
it's like the Pride and Prejudice kind of thing. It's both.
Yeah. But one of the things that they did was it wasn't that they were both at the same time.
Ah, okay.
There was that beautiful scene where they switched, and they
Yes.
both said, "Oh, I've been seeing myself as this, but actually they're this." And that scene of switching back and forth using things in parallel, that was really beautiful. But what I love about this is that then, as we're going through the story towards the end here, we can very much tell that they're kind of taking turns. They're offering each other the opportunity to lead in a specific role, or to be free to just
listening and responding.
Yeah, there's a very much a back and forth to the relationship that feels rather mature.
Yep.
And it comes across in the little things like them having, things like the fact that they split up for studying and practicing. They both say things at the same time for the little ice cream joke.
Yeah.
They have the bit when they're walking out where one's following for the first time, aka Nozomi. And then, now we're back to, no, that's okay. Now now Nozomi's leading.
Right.
Okay.
Like, oh, man.
Man, there's a lot of really fun little things that I feel like those little details are the kinds of things where you watch this on your second and third time, and then you're like, okay, I'm not even going to be paying attention to the dialogue. I'm just going to be looking at the artistic vision and direction of the whole adaptation. And that's where I feel like a lot of the discussion could go into the nitty-gritty if we went into that. But it's so, like, lovely and when I say repetitive, like, please, like, let me understand.
Not in a bad way.
It's not a negative thing. I've learned so much over the course of the channel that repetition is mandatory for a good storytelling.
That shows it's intentional.
Exactly.
Like, it's not just accidental. Like I feel like there's also a lot of elements to this movie that don't even need discussion because everything is so well on display. Like one of my favorite things in storytelling is when there's a lot of communication that's happening without actual dialogue, right?
Yes.
Where it's just, hey, put a blank space in here, and then maybe put a few choice details in that will cause the audience to basically fill in the blanks, right? And then they can understand what's going on, but you're not giving them a manual to understand.
And this is not just a dialogue thing. You're talking about exposition as well. So just any kind of talking. You're just talking about visual storytelling.
Yep, visual storytelling, especially when it comes to people, because people are so varied and dynamic and things like that.
And this story did need to repeat some of that stuff because visual storytelling can sometimes be too vague.
Exactly.
Not everyone is going to pick up on it.
Yep. And in this story, it was not vague at all. Like there might have been some things that were vague in that at the beginning of, you don't necessarily have context for everything, so you don't know exactly what's going on, but you absolutely know that something's being said, and you know that the thing that's being said is crisp. It's not just, it's just, I don't necessarily have a good view of it yet.
Yeah.
And then by the repetition, then you're like, yep, nope, totally get this. And as it goes on, like...
It's the ability to detect that something is there versus being able to connect it to different points on the overall picture.
And that's the point of watching the movie. As it goes on, it just,
It just connects it all together. The other characters that were involved in this were utilized quite well from the standpoint of we know who they are in the show, so when we see them in the movie, we're like, of course it's Yuko and Nakagawa. Of course, yes. Oh, first year's bringing in? Perfect.
I love that first year.
And then also Taki bringing up the whole issues with regards to the competing solos, the duo solos, if that's like oxymoron, and just being extremely on the nose with the request made. I feel like that's the kind of conversation, though, that tells you everything you need to know about my point earlier about how there's no one that's more at fault than another. You can tell that he's basically like, I'm addressing you first because yours is in some ways probably the simpler of the problem. But Yoroizuka, I'm also addressing you.
Exactly.
Because your situation is a little bit more complicated maybe, but it's still a problem.
Right.
And then, that's the whole thing that needs to be resolved, right?
And I gotta
it takes
say,
still a while after that for it to be resolved.
It takes a damn while, 'cause of course it does, right? But like, in writing, having a character just basically be like, I'm going to exposit to the audience what the themes of this movie are, that is tough to do well.
Because it can sound so clunky.
It can sound so clunky and feel so forced and just be like, okay, no, I get it. I'm not an idiot, right?
Right.
But the fact that the fact that it's music.
It's music,
So there's that layer of indirection.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, he's not saying it to the audience, right? But he's saying it to the characters, which still is potentially dangerous territory.
In some ways, that's almost comedic.
Right. Yeah. But then on top of it, it's the no. That's also his job. He's the instructor.
Right.
This is a complicated piece, and if they're wanting to practice such that they take gold at nationals, then
this is important.
This is very important.
Mandatory.
Any little thing that they're off by, right, is something that he'll absolutely call out, right?
Yeah.
So
there's a nice little cathartic moment where we see Reina and Kumiko having their little moment
and
of
they're just
synchronized
doing it like perfectly,
playing, and we see them laughing and just having fun together. And there's this aspect of Nozomi's character that I find rather interesting, is that she seems to be more aware at times of the problem's extremity as the movie goes on. She becomes gradually more and more aware of it, but there's this aspect of her kind of looking at it and going, I'm kind of jealous.
Right.
And one of the things that is very easy, I would say, to throw Nozomi a little bit under the bus with regards to this, and this is why I kind of assume that people can't watch this movie without that slight bit of bias, is that Nozomi becoming aware of the problem doesn't make it any easier to communicate what she's intending to communicate to Yoroizuka. Because one of the things that people will constantly bring up with melodrama issues that are of the, this is drama that well, not why is it here, but why don't they just say this? And usually the issue is not about whether they say this, it's that they're thinking about, oh, if I say any one of these 7 things that I've thought in my head, any one of them could be better than the other at communicating the desire, the emotion behind it. But people don't think that way, and being able to see immediately that this is the best choice.
Right, you're in the situation, so your perspective is limited.
Yeah, your perspective is extremely limited. And then, well, because she has the most communication skills in this regard, we then go, so she must be perfectly adept with communication.
Right, and it's like,
and thus, you could have solved the whole thing, Nozomi, if you just blah, 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 blah. Yeah. No, it's not the case. No.
One way I like to think about it is that there's that saying that, like, acknowledging the problem is the first and most important step to solving it, right?
Yeah, but that's nothing, really.
But that's just the first just the first step. Yeah. There are a bunch of other steps that come after that.
You can acknowledge the problem all you want.
Right.
It's not even really that important of a step, really. No. Let's listen to what I'm saying here. The importance is a bad word for it. See how miscommunication can happen? The weight behind it is actually not that strong.
Right.
It's easy to acknowledge a problem.
It's fundamentally necessary, but you're not exactly making a lot of progress.
Right. By acknowledging the problem, what you basically have is a self-realization that is limited by whenever you basically decide to, well, now I'm not focusing on it anymore.
Sure.
So you just did it, and now it's localized in time, all that time ago.
Yeah.
But what has changed? What has changed? Nothing. Okay, so maybe you should go back to acknowledging the problem and then seeing what was the next logical or next thing that made sense to go from after that.
Right, and it's a process. You need to work at it. For an example, on Mizore's end, the problem was acknowledged and kind of dispelled of the fear of, hey, I was trying to think of you when I left, and that's why I didn't tell you, right? But that didn't suddenly make that problem go away, right? The problem that she had, right? It's the it's the acknowledging of, okay, now I can look at it and maybe deal with it, but Mizore absolutely had not actually dealt with it, right?
Right.
And like the way that this movie got at the two characters' hearts, basically, of both struggling with this thing in their own different ways and making progress in some areas, not making progress in others, right? It absolutely took me for a ride. Like,
same.
And I think it's encapsulated perfectly for me, really, in that final bit where we see the two birds, right? And they're constantly flying together and then going away, and then coming back together and then going away, right? And it's something where
like a double helix. Right,
exactly. At any moment, they could just stay flying together and just go off, into the sky, or they could completely split and go off screen, right? And especially with how slowly the birds were moving, it's like, all right, which is it, right? What's going on, right? It's neither, right? Because it's the thing of the Mizore had to fully let go of Nozomi, right? Incredibly important,
right? So
that then Nozomi could kind of be free to truly make her choice, right? Of, okay, I'll be able to, accompany you perfectly, but it will take a while, right? It's the she says thank you when she gets the I love you hug.
Yeah.
And then later she says something that we don't get to see because that's private. And, Yoroizuka, gets this big smile on her face or is super surprised.
Right. I really like that you're 100% right. And then you can even add on top of that, and then Nozomi needed to be patient in letting Mizore communicate her feelings in those moments so that she could actually understand where Mizore was coming from. Because one of the things I really loved about the hug scenes getting rejected by both of them, they both rejected each other there, is that was both of the moments there where the movie could have, they could have resolved the whole thing right there.
Yep.
It's proving to us, the audience, that they're both making an effort.
Right.
And you're both missing each other at the times where they feel like the other person is actually willing to receive it.
Yep.
And that's life right there.
Yep.
Is there's so many times where people, and look at this from just the romantic side of things.
Oh, definitely.
There's so many times where people will confess to another and be like, yes. And then the other person's like, and then like, how many times is it like 6 months later, that person is like, I made a mistake. Why did I do that? And then they go back and no, sorry.
Too late.
Yeah. You missed your chance. Yeah.
Yep.
And that is something that is so realistic in some ways that because of the convenience, and this is something I very much love that they do in stories.
I mean, you're already talking about The Fox and the Hound earlier. Let's go into this.
This is the setting that allows this type of dysfunctional relationship to happen.
And it's going to end.
It's going to end eventually.
And you're not going to be going to the same school. And I love that so much because it's the thing of this is how we know that they've actually addressed the problem.
Yeah.
Right? Because if it was just, okay, and then, you know what? I actually am surprised good enough to actually go to music school and have that work out. It's like, well, then we wouldn't necessarily know. It's the fact that they can, study on their own different things separately and still be like, hey, you want to walk home together? You want to go someplace, after school, right?
Yeah.
That kind of a thing.
Yep, I've had relationships in general where I've been on both sides of this here, so I very much understand each one there. The one that was was misore, more specifically, was a relationship of convenience, someone that I was living in a very close proximity to, and then we moved away, and I found out that I was essentially kind of keeping them a bit caged up in that respect by basically it wasn't that I was needing so much from them, but I kept pushing myself into their life basically.
Yeah.
And they were trying to basically be like, hey, I get it, absolutely, but I'm not really that, I need to kind of let you off easy because they didn't know how to communicate that. So that was the one part there. Then I've been on the other side of things with Nozomi, where there's a situation where there's someone that keeps kind of doing the whole, I'm following you, I'm around you and stuff. This is this thing there. And there was a different angle of it because this was a person that was more needing like therapy in addition to a friendship, you know? Yeah. And it's like, I can't be your therapist.
Nope.
I can't do that part for you. I can't be there for everything. Right. What it is like I eventually had to have a conversation with the person of like, okay, I can be there for you in this context.
Sure.
But I actually cannot be for you in any other context. And that was just like a knife to the heart for this person. And we're not really in connection anymore because I had to communicate that so that, they would understand that this was unhealthy, what they were trying to set up here. But by doing that, I then killed the relationship. It did end.
It was something where they weren't able to fully understand that kind of, I guess, or accept it. They needed something more. That's just human needs being communicated. Here's a way to put it.
Yeah.
If you are chained to somebody and you need to go your separate ways and you succeed, either they are going with you and you didn't go your separate ways, or something of them came off.
Yeah.
It's your hands, if you're handcuffed together,
right.
You better take those handcuffs off before you go your separate ways. Otherwise, it is not going to go well, right? And that's why it's so important to actually be able to let go because you can't just keep someone a hostage or a prisoner like that, right? It doesn't work.
It does not work.
Doesn't work.
Yeah. And oftentimes the communication that could happen to make it better, really, or to kind of resolve what's not being said. And the reason why it's not being said has good intentions.
Sure.
For the most part. I'd say most people in general are not going to be horrible about this in general.
Even if they are, it's usually out of ignorance than maliciousness. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So the patience that I love that Nozomi was finally well, not really Nozomi.
Yeah.
Actually, hold on.
Maybe.
No, if anything, patience wasn't really a part of the equation much at all.
Maybe it was that Nozomi needed Mizore to be patient with her.
Yeah.
Like because Mizure
Yeah.
was so worried that a bad thing would happen again, right?
Right.
That then she wasn't being patient, right? Like it was the whole thing of when, you know, Nozomi was hanging out with like her kohais, she's all like, "Oh, okay. There's the possibility that she could have potentially hung out with them."
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, right?
Oh, yeah.
But oh no. Okay, if we're hanging out with pretty much anyone else, then I guess that's not it, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that doesn't work.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking back to that part at the end where
It'll take
she
a while.
keeps trying to cut off Nozomi, and Nozomi's talking, but then she keeps like reasserting, me like, no, I'm gonna,
Right, I'm going to say this.
I'm going to say all this.
Yeah,
don't try to stop me.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, yeah, if anything, yeah, that was a thing where they were both trying to impatiently get their thing out, but because Nozomi is much better at kind of asserting, well,
Right,
you know, herself there.
She's used to being the one that does all the talking. The fact that Mizure was actually like, all right, I'm going to go into confrontational mode, and I don't know if I've
Right.
ever even done this in my life,
Yeah.
much less with you.
That was impressive.
You know, then it's the,
Yeah.
no, I'm going to, you stop talking, please. You know, I need to say this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a really good scene. Probably the one that I want to rewatch the most.
Oh, so good.
Because it really goes for a good chunk of time too.
Yep.
And there's a very cool kind of balance act as it swings back over to Mizure to give her an opportunity to speak all this stuff there.
And it's not the end of the movie.
No, it's not the end of the movie, but it was probably one of those moments where I remembered conversations like that, and I was like, oh, that's where relationships end often.
Yeah.
Is that someone said something in the midst of that then a new rift of, oh, now
Right.
I'm not going to communicate based on my interpretation of what they
Yeah.
said, and I'm going to use that as a excuse to divide the relationship.
Right. I feel like it's the equivalent of in the earlier scene when Yorozuka holds out her arms and is like, I want, will you do that with me? I want an I love you hug, right? And Nozomi says, not right now, right? That's something where that was something that needed to be said. Mizure wasn't being fair with Nozomi in that, even though it was an earnest desire and request and all of that, right?
Yeah, there wasn't any preparation or build up for it.
Yep, and it really wasn't okay with her that Nozomi said no, not right now.
Yeah.
As a result of that, that's not really a fair thing to ask someone for,
Yeah,
because you're not
exactly.
really asking them, even if it's something where
Yeah.
because you say lack the confidence, you're
Yeah.
technically asking them. You're not actually.
Right.
It's more of a demand. Whereas in the confrontation part,
Yeah.
it's something where Mizure has found the confidence and the self-assuredness basically to say what needs to be said, and it doesn't really matter how Nozomi responds, right?
Well, she doesn't give her the chance to reject her. She kind of falls into her arms there and hugs her.
Right. And then it's the
Yeah.
and then after Mizure gives her the thing that she always wanted, right? The I love you hug of this is where I'm at least,
Yeah.
wherever, you know, who knows where you're at. Then Nozomi actually feels free to be like, okay, all right, I can lean into the hug. You know. There you go.
Yeah. I really love that scene. That's
So good.
That's
like I was this close to like it was I felt caught in this moment where I'm like, okay, I want to make sure that I'm not like distracting myself from what's going on. But I like the words were in my throat of like, come on, I love you hug. Like this
Yeah.
needs to happen, right?
Yeah.
And you know, it took a bit longer to get to it than I thought, you know, which was great. But then when it happened, it's like, yes. Yes.
yeah, this is a movie that I feel like is on the level of, well, yeah, Silent Voice in some
Sure.
ways, in that it handles
In some ways I like it better.
Well, yeah. In some ways, it handles a topic that is fairly common, but rather difficult to address in a way. So it needs to be handled in a mature setting, and because this is an immature setting, if you will, in that
Right.
we have the characters are all young kids and still figuring
That's
out
why
life
the
and stuff.
conflict happens and takes so long to get resolved.
Right.
And things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
We see the build up towards the setting where they can maturely, or in some ways awkwardly, but maturely communicate all their feelings.
Oh yeah, yeah. Maturity does not mean you're not awkward.
Oh,
Like,
or that you're not making mistakes.
right, exactly. Yeah.
It's more the commitment and willingness to continue doing the thing in the spite of the fact that you're making mistakes or you're being awkward
in
about
spite
it.
of the fact that it's uncomfortable, maybe because this is what you realize you
Right.
need to do or whatever. And
Right.
yeah,
And usually it comes about in the fact that you communicate those things directly.
Right.
I would say that's probably the biggest portion of problems where people are immature, is that they use indirect communication because of some insecurity, fear, nervousness.
I gave hints.
Worry, whatever. Yeah. Oh God. And
Like-
what's funny is that was kind of this is something I totally forgot, because I was going to bring it up in the discussion. Like, here it is now. Was all the first years bringing up their little confessions of love and their little interactions with boys and stuff. And it was always through these indirect communication things that then they would completely lose their minds over. Of, he compared me to a blowfish.
He's saying I was
Is he
fatter.
saying I'm fat? It's like, no. Well, was the fish cute? Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter. It's because it's cute, right? So you can see it that way too. But if you wanted to know, because they're high schoolers, they're not going to do this.
Right.
You just ask, what did you mean when you compared me to a blowfish? Because that sounds awkward and uncomfortable, right?
Yep.
But then the boy just goes,
You need to be naked and bulletproof.
what?
Yeah. Like
You're actually asking me this? I haven't thought about this. I'm going to use indirect communication now.
Oh man.
The moon.
Oh God. But like, yeah, there is something so wonderfully like I don't know. Lack of communication or indirect communication or, like hinting communication and all that stuff generally comes from that place of insecurity, right? But because you don't want to be vulnerable, because then you can get hurt and there's all these things that could go wrong. But there is a wonderful strength that can come from being vulnerable, from being totally vulnerable, where you're like, yep, at this point I could get hurt, but in a lot of other ways I now can't get hurt.
Yep.
So
Yeah, there's a lot that could go into this movie for the purpose of studying the characters' interactions and then using them as a framework for looking at just relationships in general. It's a really, really good,
good,
really good presentation of it as well. But just a good topic to utilize as the framework for the conflict. But
pretty much the last thing I want to say for this movie
Yeah.
is that this is a 90-minute movie that, as far as content-wise, doesn't have a lot.
No.
Because the story is very straightforward. It's two
Plot-wise,
characters.
no.
Yeah, plot-wise, right?
Yeah.
There's all the atmosphere and everything that makes it excellent execution. But like, I wouldn't have been surprised if we had only been able to get like 20 minutes of discussion out of this movie, because it's very straightforward, right?
Yeah.
But with how well it's done.
That's the thing. Someone in the comments is going to probably make this argument, and I totally expect you to, because this is a good argument, is that you shouldn't measure the content by the plot, because every bit of body language is technically then plot, right?
That's all dialogue.
Yeah, that's all interaction.
Just not with words.
Yeah. It doesn't have to have words, so therefore it's not plot. Wait,
Right.
No.
And
not at all.
And for the whole, a silent voice comparison and things like that, totally different movies. I love them both for different reasons, and some that are the same reasons. But like, this is the thing that my one thing that I would have wanted to have more of from a silent voice is more time, because even though it's a much longer movie, it's like 40 minutes longer, there is much more plot wise that's happening, right? So you don't get to have, I feel like, as much of the let's have 5 minutes of just people like
There's
putting
a
on their
reason
shoes
for
at
that.
school and
There's
stuff.
a reason for that.
Yeah,
And this
yeah.
is what I would say a lot of people do give legitimate criticism about silent voices. You don't need all those characters.
Nope. And that's one of the things where the adaptation, I feel like, it's the fact that A Silent Voice worked that well as an adaptation, given that it's 7 volumes of manga consolidated into one film, is incredible. But this was definitely a single light novel kind of a thing, like written to be like, here you go, here's a story.
There's probably stuff cut though.
No, just sure, totally. But like this is, A silent voice is something where I'm like, oh man, that is amazing that they were able to make such a good movie out of that as like an adaptation from that much content to a movie.
Right.
This is like the kind of thing where it's like, no, this was made to be made into a movie.
Well,
like,
okay, I want to bring up the idea that if you wrote this in a book, you couldn't necessarily communicate this much visual storytelling in a book. So it's probably, like you're saying, it is a thing that it needed to be a visual medium. But I think that there's a possibility, and this doesn't have to be the case. I'm not predicting as if, this is definitely the case. I'm just saying that the book could have been just written entirely different, where it's all in their thoughts.
Sure.
And you could have just had a unique...
Oh, yeah.
You could have had it be 2 different first-person perspectives that you alternate chapters between.
Right.
You could have had it be... There's so many ways you could do this story differently in terms of how you communicate this stuff. Because in a book, you don't have the ease of which the hand moves in this way. And then this moves in this way. That takes a lot of space and writing time. And that's not as pretty to look at on a page as it is... in KyoAni movie budget.
And I will say, light novels specifically don't do much character like physicality writing.
No, it's more dialogue.
Right, it's more dialogue and stuff. So I am very curious to see what I want to read the light novel for Liz and the Bluebird because I want to see how it was done.
I'll bet you it's internal
thoughts. It's probably
thoughts.
Internal thoughts because
and I want to just throw out a thing here. I wouldn't be surprised if it was from Yoroizuka's perspective.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Because this is the part that I feel like is the slight internal bias going on here as well, is that if you don't have Nozomi's thoughts, it makes for a much more compelling mystery of will she reject me or will she kind of deal with my feelings there, because Yoroizuka is the one with the biggest internal, immediate issue with regards to how she communicates this. Like, Nozomi has way more capacity in that regard.
Well, to liken it to the music, Taki had to tell Nozomi to specifically talk more softly, whisper it to her, right? Your emotions are too strong, you'll drown her out, right? Quiet characters in general, especially in books, are ridiculously difficult to actually communicate their feelings and emotions if you're not going from their perspective. Because because
then they don't say much.
Because then they don't say much, right? You either have to spend a ridiculous amount of time describing the ways they communicate without words, but again, light novel, so that probably wasn't as much of a thing. So so good.
And if they don't have any first-person perspective, I would have even more props given to the light novel, because there's a possibility then that they had to communicate all this subtlety that KyoAni adapted into a visual medium through dialogue alone, which is
insane.
Freaking insane.
That is insane.
So great stuff. But y'all,
so good.
Thank you so much for watching this reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion, it's not an episode, it's a movie.
Right.
The next final Hibike Euphonium movie. I don't know what it's called, but we're excited for it. Go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can watch full-length reactions there. You get early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us and the community there about this movie, about the show, about anime in general, and you can also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
Yes, we stream every weekday. The info is down in the description below.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.